Hey, what's up? Hello, Futurecasters. Welcome to another episode of Past, Present, Futurecast. I am your host, Maria Elena. And for this episode, our cards of the week are inviting us once again to get really clear on our values and our sense of justice and judgment. So if you haven't yet done the value clarifying exercise I encouraged you to do in last episode, maybe think about it, maybe take it to heart, maybe spend some time really getting clear on and writing down what's important to you. What do you value? Because that's what we're going to need to know as we come up against instances and moments where we're going to be asked to make tough choices. We're also being invited to speak truth to power. So I've pulled the King of Swords for us this week. And the King of Swords, we can see in the Fifth Spirit Tarot version of this deck, is an activist. This is someone who's got the bullhorn leading a protest and shouting out what they know to be true, just, and right. They're using their voice to make a difference in their community. And the other card that I pulled is the Two of Swords. And so the Two of Swords is part of what's encouraging me to encourage you to get really clear on your values once again. Because the Two of Swords invites us to shut out outside influence, turn inwards, and find the truth within. If you're curious about how I've been speaking truth to power in the last few weeks and being a little bit of a rabble-rouser in my community, especially influenced by the Mars-Pluto opposition, check out my Patreon, where I'm going to share a little write-up that I did for the astrology course that I'm taking, outlining just what happened with the Mars-Pluto opposition here in my hometown of Tucson. If you are located in Tucson, which I know many of my listeners are, hello, shout out to the Dirty Tea. You probably are already aware of what's going on and what kind of action has been stirred up in the last week or so. But if you're not aware, check out my Instagram at Persephonic777. Take a look at what I've been sharing, what I've been posting. Go sign the petition that I've started and keep an eye out for some action items, some calls to action that I'm going to be sharing over the coming weeks. And the write-up that's connecting all of this to the Mars-Pluto opposition will be, like I said, on Patreon, patreon.com/Persephonic. We're going to get right into this interview this week because I'm so excited to share it with you. This is an interview, a conversation, a connection that has been years in the making. And I can't wait for you to hear everything we have to talk about and to discover the project that my wonderful guest is sharing to the world as we speak. If you listen to this interview and you are inspired by this project and you want to back this project as it's currently being crowdfunded, I have a discount link for you. Frank was generous enough to share a 20% discount link for the project that we're going to be talking about. So that can also be found on patreon.com/Persephonic. Now, without further ado, let's jump right into this conversation. It's so much fun. You're going to love it. Enjoy. Speak truth to power. Get clear on your values and have a wonderful week. All right. Hello and welcome. I am here with Frank Lawrence. Frank is an independent artist, typographer, and designer of systems of divination from Toronto, Canada. Frank runs a graphic design consultation company called Pallor Publishing, through which he offers an in-person Sigil Design Methodology class, and is currently crowdfunding a pleasure product-themed tarot deck called Vibrating Tarot. Frank, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited that we get to chat.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. I've been looking forward to it, and I'm happy to sit here and chat with you today.
So Frank and I first met years ago. Frank attended my very first tarot workshop series. I started teaching tarot in 2021. I taught a class gosh, what was it called? Oh, Elemental Arcana. So we was 4 classes and we talked about the elements associated with the minor arcana. And Frank joined us, and it was just an absolute joy because at that point you were just starting to develop Vibrating Tarot, and we got to talk a little about that.
Yeah, yeah, I remember I was in my beginning phases, putting a lot of the imagery together, still acquiring permissions from different brands and making active decisions along the way. I recall your course was influential in my design process, so I thank you for that.
That's amazing. Thank you. And that was all the way back in, I think, 2021. So Vibrating Tarot has been a really long prod. We'll get into that for sure, but I'd love to talk about what even came before this project arose.
Well, I have a storied past. I've dabbled in a lot of different things. I went to school for television broadcasting. I was a photographer. I later moved into graphic design as a result of my work in photography. I never really embraced video and real time media. It was just too involved on too many different levels with lighting and audio and set direction and wardrobe and all these things. I really wanted to be creative and put my ideas out there in the world, but I was looking for a more simplified way to express myself. And from videography, moved to photography, and that paved the way for me to get into graphic design. And I went to York University here in Toronto to learn about the graphic design industry and to be more proficient operating within it. And my time at school, I specialized in typography. And as a result of that, I got into book design. When we were at school, um, everyone, the majority of the people I was going to school with, and certainly the professors, were pushing us in the direction of web design. And again, that felt a little foreign to me. I wanted to work with something material, something tangible and tactile. Those elements are very important to me. And usually, when 90% of the people move in one direction, I often move in the other direction. So, with everyone moving into web design, I thought book design is going to be where I'm going to find my home. I'm going to go back to the old world and be responsible for laying out typography for a manuscript. And that's what I did. I found some work with local publishing companies, and I've reached out to the community members in my hometown, and we've worked together to put their written word, whether it be poetry or a novel, something like that, in the form of a book. And so, as a book designer, I take a client through all of the different decisions that need to be made in order to get that book published and maybe not published, but at least printed and bound and put in our hands. So anywhere from the choice of font and how the manuscript looks on the printed page down to the actual stock that we're printing on, the method of binding, the book cover, and its presence on the shelf, and everything in between. So when I got some experience publishing books, I put out a magazine um, for around 5 years. It was based on public domain material that existed within the classic horror genre. So I collected old time um, silent films, and we would display the film across a 52-page magazine with some dialogue or the intertitles of the silent film showing up as the typographical element. And then surrounding the content of the film, I invited local artists, poets, and different kinds of writers to write little short pieces for the supplementary material. So that was a lot of fun. I always wanted to tackle a deck of cards because I grew up with playing cards in the household, and I kind of think that a deck of cards is almost like a book. It's not bound, but there are these various pages in a deck of cards. You're able to take a page out, which exists as a single card, and shuffle them around and experience them in a different way. But again, that tactile nature is present, and so decks of cards spoke to me just as loudly as books did. And so this project that we're touching upon today, Vibrating Tarot, is the first deck of cards that I'm publishing and bringing out to the world.
That's awesome. Amazing. So I'm looking at the cards that we've flipped over, and one of them is kind of already starting to stick out to me, hearing you talk about your entry into a career of graphic design and how you were kind of separating yourself from the pack who was all headed towards web design, and you took a different approach. And the card that we have that's come up is the Two of Swords. And so with the Two of Swords, first of all, of course, it's swords coming up. We're talking about words, we're talking about communication, we're talking about publishing, we're talking about typography, literally just words and letters on a page. And with that too, there is almost that duality of the digital versus the material, the
Absolutely.
tangible.
Yeah.
And with the Two of Swords in particular, the way that figure is often shown blindfolded, they're shown kind of like crossed over the heart in this traditional Smith-Waite version of the deck. There's a lot that I connect with this card in terms of shutting out outside influence and listening to your own gut, listening to your own intuition, listening to your own inner knowing, and choosing to act upon that rather than acting in a line with the influence of others around you.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing that kind of being pulled out of having to make your own conscious choice to take a route that felt really good and empowering for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And a route that I was unfamiliar with. That's another thing I see within that card is the blindfold always reminds me of unfamiliarity, jumping into a realm that I knew very little about. The publishing world, at least. Like I went to school to learn about typography and to learn how to use the programs and the ideas behind making design decisions. But when it came to operating in the industry, it was very new to me and still something I'm learning quite a lot about. You get people pulling you in different directions. That's another thing I see in the Two of Swords. But it's a mental journey. It is one that cannot be led with overwhelming emotions. It really has to do with your mental capabilities of working things out, seeking advice, searching for the answers. Always, I'm a lifelong learner of so many things. Certainly, spirituality and divination and community and just operating in this world, trying to put one foot in front of the other. Um, it could be a slow process, but nothing in life can be rushed. And so yeah, that card is one that allows you to sit with yourself um, and and to contemplate the things that we have at our fingertips and to realize um, the things that we still need to make progress with uncovering.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'd also love to hear about where your interest in both tarot and also pleasure products comes from. And I will say that this podcast does get marked with an explicit warning, like the whole show does, because I swear.
Oh yeah,
So we can also
sure.
say sex toys. We're talking about
Okay.
sex toys when we're talking about pleasure products. All kinds of things related to sexuality. So where did that come in your story?
It's a story that it's very personal to me. It was a story that I was reluctant to share on a lot of different levels, but having moved for so many years through this process, like you said, we first met in 2021, but I think I first had this idea in 2017. At least that's when I was made aware of my idea, and I could trace the idea further back to, I think, 2014. Yeah, there was, maybe I should just say this for a trigger warning, in all sincerity, for anybody who has sensitivities surrounding the subject of a fire, because that's what happened in my case. So apologies and warning that I'll discuss that in briefly. But what happened was in 2014, my apartment building did burn down. There was neglect with the boiler, and the boiler caught on fire. And I was living in a century building. It had just turned 100 years old in 2014. I was home at the time of the fire. My partner and I grabbed our cats and we escaped the building. And so that incident really did change my entire life. It shaped everything that has followed that. We didn't recover anything from the fire. So my entire life of art, artistic output, um, all of the notebooks and ideas that I had been writing for years, all of it gone. My notes from school and all my process work for anything I was working on was just all gone in one fell swoop. So I was in a position where I needed to learn how to reinvent myself and to sort of emerge from this period of time. Um, and you never know what is going to come from these things. It was devastating, but at the same time, it did plant the seeds for regrowth and rebirth, much like the death card, I would say. Is quite literally about torching all of the dry brush in a field and turning it to ash in order for um, the space to be used for those seedlings to grow again. And that's exactly what happened in my case. I recall shopping around for some of the necessities that one needs after they've just lost everything in a fire, like a new pair of pants, new toothbrush, these sorts of things that we take for granted. And during the process, my partner and I thought, well, she and I were saying, what could we go out to purchase that isn't something that's absolutely needed, that's not a requirement? What's something that we could go out and purchase just for ourselves to make us feel a little more like, normal, like we did in the past? And we decided to go out and buy two objects, two very specific things. One was we went to the local adult retailer to buy a magic wand. And then we went to an occult shop to purchase a tarot deck. At one point in time in my life, those two objects were quite literally the only two things that I owned. Um, and in that process, I've, I didn't know it at the time, and I didn't even know it years and years later. But now that I look back and I reflect upon it, those two items somehow molded into one idea for a product that would be a tarot deck that features pleasure products in place of all the people and surrounding imagery. Now, I mentioned, a couple of years along the path. 2014 is when the fire happened, but it wasn't until 2017 that this idea came to the forefront of my mind. And I've learned to be a student of the creative process. It's something that we specifically studied in school. And the creative process is a wonderful thing. We all get our inspiration from different places, and I've always looked inwards. I, I feel that so many people look outwards for answers, and we have all forgotten the value of looking inwards. And I've learned to listen to my subconscious through my dream process, um, and those moments when we're starting to fall asleep and these wonderful, fantastic ideas flash in our minds. And I've always carried a pen and a book beside my bed, because as a creative idea person, I usually do get a lot of ideas during this period of time. And it's been a great disappointment to me throughout the years when I can think in the moment that this idea is wonderful and worth moving forward, but then you actually move on with the rest of your sleep process. And by the time you wake up hours later, the idea is gone. And all you can remember is that you had this wonderful idea, but you don't really know what it was. You've forgotten important elements and it's just gone with the wind. I have that pad of paper and pen beside me and I use it quite often. And that's what happened one day in 2017. I was drifting off to sleep. It was like not nighttime. I think it was in the middle of the day. I was just like drifting off, taking a nap or something like that. And as I was falling asleep, this dream world started to emerge where I witnessed an image of, and again, I didn't know this at the time, but it ended up relating to the Lover's card. But what I saw was like a green field, a bright blue sky, and a blazing sun. And in place of the sun was the We Vibe chorus, which is a couple's vibrator. And I immediately shot up from my sleeping state, and my eyes must have just bulged out of my head. And I thought, I have this amazing idea here. I didn't waste a minute. I got my book and I wrote it down. The We Vibe chorus in place of the sun on the Lover's card. It was just that little note. And then I actually remember thinking, well, if that's the Lover's card, that the We Vibe chorus would be in place of the sun here on the Lover's card. That would be the first card. So then I started thinking, instead of thinking, what would the next card be? I thought to myself, what would the next pleasure product be? Because in order to do this deck of cards for real, I would need to work with the most iconic products on the market. So the very next idea I thought of was the magic wand. And I thought, okay, the magic wand needs to be involved, and I need to put it's like the most iconic pleasure product of all time, perhaps. It needs to be on the most powerful, iconic card in the whole deck. So I made a note to put it on the world card. You and I could discuss the ramifications behind that idea. Um, but certainly the world card felt to me like the right spot to put the magic wand in place of the central figure moving through the circular wreath. I had the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck in mind when I conceived of this idea. It was the deck of cards that I mentioned that I had bought at the occult store in 2014. And so that was the first time that the magic wand and that Rider-Waite-Smith imagery came together. And so from that little experience, I had two cards, the We Vibe Chorus on the Lover's card and the magic wand on the World card. And I thought to myself, okay, that's good enough. That's a pretty good little seed to have planted in the ground. And I was really happy to move forward with that incrementally and slowly throughout the years, and with the intent to build an entire tarot deck, not just for this idea to be a one-off painting or a graphic design that would just be a meme or like a quick laugh and then you move on to other things, but as a designer, as a book designer, and somebody who's always wanted to design a deck of cards, I always thought whatever I come out the gate with should be my most powerful idea. I want it to be like a home run. And I thought if I could get all of the different pleasure products to support me throughout this endeavor, I would not only be accessing my own circle, my own reach, but I would have access to all of their reach as well. And when we start to talk about companies like Magic Wand or We Vibe or Blush, Cal Exotics, Doc Johnson, their reach is enormous. And so I thought, if I did this the right way, if I did it with maturity and integrity, if I didn't treat it like a joke, that would appeal in a much greater way. to not only the audience, but the pleasure product companies who I would ultimately need permission from. And that's sort of how I started to form this idea. That's how, from the beginning, I never wanted to make it into a joke. I was always very serious about it, tried to be very businesslike about it, very formal with my approach. And went from there. But that's when I sort of dug in. Um, Actually, that's when the idea happened. But it wasn't until COVID and the whole the world sort of coming to a pause in 2020 that I actually bit into this idea. I bit in, and I took a huge chunk out of that app, and I started to put my ideas online, and got some response from the different pleasure products that I was trying to get on their radar, and they started to give me positive response, and it all sort of went from there.
I have so many things to say.
Please do, yeah.
I I love this this project so much. First of all, I'm so glad that you made it out of that house fire. So grateful
Oh,
that you made
thank
it
you.
out with your cats and that you're here to continue giving your art to the world. That sounds terrifying. And with this project, one of the reasons why I love it so much is because that combination of tarot and pleasure products is also near and dear to my heart. I've obviously been working with tarot since I was a teen, and my very first job was working in an adult shop. I've worked in two different adult shops throughout my life, so I've been the one behind the counter. I used to call it slinging dildos,
Yeah,
um, selling people these products. And there's something so fun and exciting and innovative and cool about that industry. So seeing the two
yeah,
combined just
absolutely.
like totally blew my mind. And I am so in awe of your dedication to doing it well, doing it seriously, and really communicating with these businesses and getting them all on board. I nerd out every time you posted that there was another company joining the list who had signed on. I was like, "Oh yeah, Cal Exotics, like they have so many different products and oh, you've got WeVibe, like we love WeVibe. Their stuff's incredible." And I want to show actually, you talked about the lovers in the world being the first two cards that kind of started that ideation project. And I am so lucky to have received a preview deck of Vibrating Tarot in a very hilarious way that maybe I'll share in a moment. But I have
Yeah,
here at least early versions. They may change, but I have the lovers
yeah.
here with that classic We Vibe couples toy in the center. And then these two, um, when I was working at Jellywink Boutique here in Tucson, which is
Oh,
a
yeah.
women owned and queer friendly adult shop here in Tucson, these two are always the two like small handheld vibes that
Yeah,
we recommend number one.
they're great.
And then the world here with that magic wand in the center and symbols of all of the how you show the elements around in each corner. The other thing I want to say, so hearing how this whole idea started with you seeing the We Vibe toy as the sun, the other card that we've pulled for your past is the sun.
Oh, great.
And seeing that as this symbol of like joy and excitement, knowing that the magic wand and the tarot card were chosen to be symbols of life beyond necessity, symbols of things that really could give you and your partner life while you were dealing with so much destruction. The sun
Certainly.
feels very appropriate coming up here.
Yeah, it's a card of pride, of rebirth. I feel a strong connection to that card as well.
Amazing. So I should say most folks are listening to this as the audio version, but if you go to YouTube and check out the video version, you can see those images of the world and the lovers from the Vibrating Tarot special edition preview deck, which I'm very grateful to have in my possession. Should I tell the story of how I got the preview deck?
Yeah, please do, because I think it's a wonderful one. It's so
It's kind of
random, but
funny.
it's so connected. And yeah, go ahead.
So, obviously, I've known Frank since 2021. I've known about this project since 2021. I've been following the Instagram. I've been very enthusiastic about it happening. And by absolute happenstance, I ended up with the Vibrating Tarot preview deck. So, my very, very best friend, who I have known since seventh grade, shout out to one Erin Moe, last name redacted. She can identify herself online if she wishes to. Her father is uh taking over her grandfather's business of running various adult shops on like the East Coast. I think they're in like Pennsylvania and various areas in New England. And so because of that, he goes to the big expos that happen in Vegas and all around, where different companies are showing off their new products, trying to get, more buyers, more stores, expos all around pleasure products. And he had come back from one, and I was hanging out with my friend because she happened to be in town. It was around the holidays. So she'd seen her family, she was seeing me, and we were out at the Tucson Vegan Night Market, and she goes, "Oh, I have something for you. My dad brought you back something from the last expo he went to." And I thought, "That's hilarious.
Yes.
Why is Richard bringing me back something from the Pleasure Product Expo?" Everyone who knows me knows that this is something that I'm interested in. They know that I've worked in adult shops. They know that I've openly talked about pleasure and sex work and working in adult shops, all of that. They know that it's a key part of my personality, and they also know that tarot is a key part of my personality. So when Erin pulled this little box with the Vibrating Tarot preview deck out of her purse and put it in my hands, I squealed with delight and I said, "I know this deck. I know this guy. That's Frank's deck." Immediately hopped on Instagram, and I think I sent you a picture of me
Yeah.
holding it, which was just such a fun little like all the worlds connecting, and
Yeah.
showed that, my friend's dad really knows me very well.
This is an amazing story for us both because, when you told me about that, I just thought to myself, wow, I didn't expect this little sample deck to reach so far and to reach so many people, not just the people that I gave it to in that trade show, on that trade show floor, but for them to pass it along to people in their lives. And by doing so, I feel like I've reached every corner of North America. Maybe not Alaska. I don't know if it's gone up that far, but certainly people across Canada, throughout the United States, down to Mexico. This deck is as I'll tell you the little story about how it was made. We Vibe were very cognizant of this project. They had signed on, and they're big supporters of my work. And they're under the umbrella of a larger company called Love Honey Group. And Love Honey Group has under their umbrella We Vibe, Womanizer, Pure, as I would say the top three. They also have Arcwave and Romp and some others. And so I've worked with a variety of those different brands. And Love Honey Group signed on. They were the chief signer for all of those different brands. So they really made all of that come to fruition for me. The womanizer one was certainly an important one to acquire. And then in the realm of lubricant, I wanted to acquire the permission from all of the best, well-known, and iconic body safe lubricants, and Pure was definitely on that list. So Love Honey Group came through in a big way for me and our project. And on top of that, they reached out and asked me if I would like to accompany them to one of their trade shows, which was the trade show called ANME. It stands for the Adult Novelty Manufacturers Expo. And so I tagged along with their team in January of 2024 to Burbank, California, which is my first time being on that coast. And it it opened untold doors. It was an invaluable experience, one that I'll never forget, and one that I'll always be indebted to them for offering me. I got to meet everybody in the industry, everybody that I've been working with thus far. I was able to look them in the eye, shake their hand, and that helped in numerous ways. I was also able to, in real time, discuss the project with a variety of different companies that were on the precipice of signing with me, but perhaps had their reservations, or maybe not even go as far as to call them reservations, but you know, I'm I'm an independent artist, not associated with their industry, and my emails fall through the cracks. It's completely understandable. But being there at that trade show put me right in front of them, and I was able to remind them of the project that we had been discussing. I had the chance to read cards for so many people in the room. I got so many affirmations and so many brands saying, "We understand the project a lot better now. We're fully on board. So connect with us when we all get home, and that signature that you're waiting for, it'll come." And it was amazing. It was an amazing 3 days. And that led to the opportunity to accompany Love Honey Group again with a second trade show that they were going to the very next month in February 2024, which is called Altitude Intimates. And that was the show in Las Vegas. And that put me in touch with an even greater number of brands. And we did the whole process I just explained, played out a second time. And I was able to acquire even more brands. And at that show, I had brands coming up to me saying, "We've heard about your project. We want to be involved." Just within that past calendar year, I signed on 50 additional brands to the project. So sometimes people ask me, why hasn't this project come out yet? Or, not in a negative way, why has it taken so long? But what are the mechanisms in place that are making this project take so much time to put out? And these are some of the answers that I have. Is that if I had put it out years ago, which perhaps I could have, this deck would have looked completely different. It would be lacking a lot of the important brands that I was able to sign on. And you can only do so much work from being at home behind your computer screen. You need to get out into the world and you need to engage with the community around you. They all know me now. They all know my name, and they all know my business, and they all know my project. And if I wasn't able to go to those shows, I'd be really still far behind. So those attending those two shows really gave me a huge boost. And the Love Honey Group not only had me along and gave me a dedicated space so that I could talk to people and read cards for people at the show, but they sponsored the creation of this 25 card preview deck that we're calling it, the Vibrating Tarot preview deck. So together we chose 25 cards. We got it printed out in LA. It got put into a little tuck box, and we gave away 300 at those two shows. I think I came home with only like close to 40 units that I, proceeded to give away in my own local community. But we gave away certainly close to 300 of those decks of cards at those shows, and it really improved my process more than I can even say. So I'm thrilled and honored and privileged that I was put in that position, and it still amazes me that that little invitation to that show set things up for me to get that deck in your hands. And I was prepared to come home from the altitude show and contact you and say, "I have a few of these decks left over. Let me send one to you." And before I was even able to do that, you came to me and said that you already had one. So it was quite amazing.
It really worked out. And wow, huge thanks to Love Honey Group. That's just incredible. It's so like heartwarming to hear how well supported you've been throughout this creative process. I think there is such a strong overlap, and this is something that I talked about with Jacqueline Francis, such a strong overlap between the spiritual, esoteric, divination
Oh
world
yeah,
and the world of pleasure and sexuality. They
absolutely.
really, there's a strong
They
bond
click.
there.
Yeah,
And
they are bond.
mhm.
That's a great word for it. Yeah, and they probably always gone hand in hand for thousands of years, longer than that even. And yeah, to be putting together a project that is at the direct crossroads of these two cultures is fantastic for me. It seems like my whole career has been pointed in this direction. And yeah, both industries are experiencing a boom right now. You know, tarot in general and metaphysical and spiritual matters are experiencing a huge resurgence. There are a lot of independent tarot and oracle decks being made right now and crowdfunded. And likewise, the pleasure product industry is booming. It's becoming a trillion plus dollar industry, and less stigma surrounding these products and more culture, more open discussions, and more acceptance, certainly surrounding sex education and sexual well-being. Um, and these are the types of directions that I've taken and infused into this body of work.
So I'm hearing how important the community connections have been to the creation of this deck. And so one of the cards that I've pulled for your present work right now is really highlighting that. We have the Ace of Cups coming up. And if you're watching the video version, I'll also show the Ace of Cups from the Ace of Lube, excuse me, from the Vibrating Tarot. I'd love to talk about how you determined what the symbols of the minor arcana would be, but definitely
Yeah,
making a note there that community connection has been so important in the creation of this product.
absolutely. It can't be understated that community component, community with the industry that are making this project possible. I've been told many times that they all gather in the same on the same trade show floor a couple times a year, but there is nowhere in existence project that has brought all of these brands together under the same umbrella. So the project itself relies on that community. It relies on mutual respect for each brand in the process. And some of the things that I was told for the first time and experiencing it firsthand while traveling to these events. People would come up to me and put their arm around me and say, "This is a family, that this guy over here is the competitor of that brand over there, but they're dining together and they're drinking together and they're sharing their ideas and their thoughts and their experiences. There's no competition in a negative way. There's no infighting. It's a very vibrant community, and I witnessed it. I witnessed it firsthand in 2024 when I attended those two trade shows, and this year, like I said, Love Honey Group invited me along to two shows in 2024, and Uberlube invited me to the same two shows in 2025. And so I just came back from Las Vegas again at the Altitude Intimates trade show as a guest of Uberlube, and I'll be attending the summer Adult Novelty Manufacturers Expo with them as well this July. Um, and so community within that industry, the the foresight of that community to embrace new creative ideas like my own. That's something my lawyer actually said to me when we were drafting the licensing agreement. She said, you got lucky because you got this idea that's centered upon the pleasure product and sex toy realm. If you had had this idea with classic cars, for example, if I had gone to Jaguar or Mustang or whoever else and said, I want to do a deck of cards with your cars, they might have told me to take a hike. But the pleasure product industry, their products themselves have to do with community, outreach, you know, educational components, and reaching out,
Connection, how we connect to one
connections.
another.
Absolutely, yeah. How we connect with ourselves, how we connect with people around us. And so yeah, community was an enormous part of it, and then the other part of it is community with all the people who are interested in this body of work, because they really embrace the project as well. People like you and untold amounts of people out there. They see this project, and it just immediately wins them over. I had this idea in my head that I think I'm seeing come to fruition, which is that I figured the love, like, let's say the magic wand, for example, the love that somebody has for that magic wand is already over the moon. They spend time with it on a regular basis. It makes them feel amazing. It gets them to the place where they need to be, and it gives them that afterglow. And this is a product that is highly regarded in somebody's life. So the love that they already have for that product translates to the love that I'm hoping they have for the tarot deck itself. So when they see that product in that artwork, all of those connections that I just mentioned come to the forefront of their mind. They think about the love that they have for that product, and that love pours openly into the project that features that iconic image. So I say that I'm just the vessel by which this project has made itself known, but the pleasure products, those brands and those companies, they've done the hard work. They've done the heavy lifting throughout the years. They've built those bridges. They've um, made their product into what it is. And I stand on the shoulders of giants when I share this body of work, because the community that they put into motion, the community that they assembled, that's the same community that I'm borrowing from when I share my art with the world. So community cannot be understated. It is really the center of uh, of this project.
I'm hearing so much in what you're saying about also this sort of almost lineage that you're joining, standing on the shoulders of giants, of these companies who have created legacy products like
Yeah,
the magic wand. I mean, it's
it's
in pop
like
culture, people know about
everywhere.
it.
Yeah.
It's
It's
iconic.
it's almost like
Yeah.
it's been around forever, and I think it will continue to be around forever. And the the privileged opportunity that I have to work with that imagery on an official level, because this deck, I never wanted to just throw caution to the wind and say, well, let's just put this body of work out, and if I got a cease and desist later on down the road, I'll just fold it all up. I never wanted to do that. So approaching each and every single one of these companies to acquire formal and official licensing was a necessity, and one that elevated the project in an astronomical way. And so, like I said, to work on a formal level with this imagery is I'm still beside myself thinking what I've done.
And there's so much that you're also adding to the tarot tradition through the creation of this deck, through really deeply considering what items are going to be displayed on which card and in the renaming of the minor arcana suits as well. So the other card that we have that came up for your present work is the Hierophant. And I
Oh,
think that's
great.
speaking to
Oh,
what you are adding to the tradition, the Hierophant being so much about traditional knowledge passed down. I'd love to chat about the names that you chose and the symbols that you chose for each suit in the minor arcana.
yeah, I'd love to, because those ideas were not so straightforward to me in the beginning. It was challenging to come up with the four elements. Each um, suit responds to a different element, and So I thought long and hard about all of them, and they again they were not ideas that just came right away. I played around with different ideas and different imagery for a long time before I hit upon what would ultimately be the solutions. But I knew that I didn't want to just replace the people themselves with pleasure products. I wanted to transform the entire deck, so I couldn't lean on cups, for example, being the iconic symbolism for the element of water. I needed to search within the realm that I was working in and ask what item out there in this industry best suited to represent the element of water or the iconic symbol of cups. It ended up being lubricant, which it is a perfect I think it's perhaps the most perfect out of the four.
That one
Water,
is a little obvious. That one's a
that
little bit of a,
yeah,
like,
but
it has to be.
it
What
has
else
to
could
be.
it
Yeah,
be?
yeah. I was, I call it maybe I didn't believe in myself in the beginning enough to think that I'd be able to scoop up the permission from all the most important lubricant brands out there in addition to the pleasure product brands themselves. But when these lubricant brands started to hear about the project, and I realized that they all exist within the same industry, they all go like the lubricant brands are right there next to the pleasure products at all the trade shows and everything like that. And so it is the closest extension to the pleasure products themselves. Um, to be completely honest, and I started to say this just a second ago, maybe it was self-doubt. Like I thought to myself, Uberlube needs to be in this deck, but will I get their permission? And I started thinking, well, if it's not going to be lubricant, maybe it could be something else. Like, I don't know. It could be like a mugs or like glasses, like a cup of tea, or maybe a glass of wine or something like that. But I thought, no, I really don't want to bring any exterior products into this body of work. I also didn't, I was very sensitive about triggering the wrong um, reactions to some of the decisions that I would need to make. I didn't want to move um, in the direction of alcoholic. That's fine for people on an individual level. I don't discriminate against anything, but for a glass of wine to exist on, like, let's say the Two of Cups, I don't know, just for a brief moment, it was my front runner idea for different drinking vessels to be representing the Suit of Cups. But ultimately, I started approaching the lubricant brands. Uberlube jumped on right away, immediately. And I thought to myself, I should never be consumed by that self-doubt. You never ever know what a reaction is going to be until you get it out there and you ask the right person, you present it in the right way, and it was just phenomenal. Uberlube was very welcoming and supportive of this idea. Sliquid wanted to be involved as well. Pure came as a result of Love Honey Group. Um, and there are so many others. So Wicked Sensual Care were very supportive, and so it is just a quite a natural leap for me uh, to embrace the lubricant brands and make them part of the project in the Suit of Cups. The other three, so the element of fire is represented by the traditional iconic symbolism of the staff or the wands. And so these wands, and there's a little sub story about that because the magic, some people say, well, why isn't the magic wand in the suit of wands? I have an answer to that. But in the case of Vibrating Tarot, the suit of wands is represented by rope. So the wand in the traditional tarot deck is like a long staff. And I've chosen to represent the suit of wands. I've chosen to replace that suit with the suit of rope. And so in the cards, this is a good example that you got the 10 there. That's an example of the 10 strands of rope coming together to come up to make one piece of rope. Some of the other cards feature just, like a long length of rope that literally replaces the wand. Yeah, that's the six. And if you look at the traditional six, it's a figure on a horse, and they're holding these long wands, these long staffs. And so that long length of rope went a long way in helping me solve a lot of those problems, challenges, I should say. Also, rope relates to fire in a variety of different ways too. You can get rope burn, and just that term rope burn sort of relates to fire. The fiery sensation you get if rope is twisted on your skin the wrong way. And fire is also a way to cure rope for people who make rope. I'm not too familiar with the process, but there is a process by which they apply a flame to the rope that they created to sort of burn off all the little tiny hairs that split this way and that. And so rope really felt like it went hand in hand with the element of fire to replace the iconic imagery of that staff, of that wand. Cups is the next element we already talked about. So the one after that is swords. And again, this one really connects very well. The suit of swords moves, the sword itself moves through the air, and so it is the element of air. It talks about your intellectual component. A sword is only derived by bringing the first two elements together, fire and water. Fire and water are needed to forge a piece of metal. And so that's why the first two elements are looked at as more basic elements. And then the third element of air, represented by swords, is more of an intellectual component. It's that we need to work with those first two elements in order to experience the third element. And from swords, I thought, why not replace the suit of swords with the suit of whips or impact instruments? So I have a whip on the Ace of Whips. It's called the suit of whips, although crop whips, paddles, rattan cane, yeah, those are little carbon rods. They're called stingers. So anything that sort of travels through the air, um, yeah, great little crop whips from a Ukrainian company. I've reached across the globe to bring all of these companies together, and that's another something we could touch upon too. How many different countries are involved in this project? But going back to the suit of whips, I figured that'd be a good element to replace the suit of swords. And then the last one is the suit of plugs. Now, this is kind of like the root chakra. It is
I think this is my favorite of
favorite of
the
the yeah,
reworkings of
yeah.
the
So
suits.
those plugs symbolically and just like sometimes you got to think what is the most practical thing to replace this element with, and the pentacles representing the element of earth. Pentacle is that round coin that sort of floats in the air, and the terminal or the base of all of these plugs immediately reminded me of that pentacle. And so I thought if I could show that plug on the right angle, displayed in the right way, from 1 all the way through 10, and the core cards, then I would have a winning combination there with that one as well. And so I've shown different types of plugs. Those are wooden plugs made from a gentleman in the United States. And I've had glass plugs, metal plugs. That one is another really iconic device. That plug there has been used for hundreds of years. It's a metal plug that you turn an element on the exterior, and the part that is in the interior of your body expands outwards. It was used in the Middle Ages as a device that was meant to make people feel very uncomfortable. Today, it is embraced as a pleasure product, but that very product sits in museums. It is on display at the Museum of Sex in New York City,
I've been there.
Yeah, yeah. That product comes from a brand called XR Brands, their Master Series brand. And so, yeah, finding all of these different varieties, it's one thing to just come up with the idea, but then to embrace all the different varieties. Like rope, for example, there's jute rope, hemp, there's synthetic, there's cotton rope. Um, so, finding and then different colors of rope, natural hemp, but then you have rope dyed in all these different colors. So yeah, embracing the different lubricants, is it silicone lube? Is it water-based lube? Is it a hybrid? Is it oil-based? And based on those decisions, where do I place what type of lubricant on what card? And the determining process there was what other products are already currently displayed on the card. Are those products compatible or not compatible with silicone lube, for example? Do I want the combination to be compatible, or does the card call for the combination to not be compatible? And so it's just, I describe it like a Jenga tower. All of these decisions are so carefully placed that if you just change one, you'll be removing a block that makes the whole tower sort of shift and topple down, um, because one decision affects so many other design decisions that I've made along the way. So when you take a look at one of these cards, a lot of people aren't going to realize this in the beginning, and maybe they'll never realize it, but every single thing is placed exactly where it is for a specific rhyme and reason. There's never been a decision that I've made that was random or that did not have an incredibly deep consultation process of why it would go there and what it means for it to sit there in that specific design, whatever the design is that you're looking at. And this is part of the reason why it's taken so long. Um, part of the reason. Um, and then, the other part of it is I would come to these decisions. I would fall in love with them. I would convince myself there's no other way that this could happen and that this is it. And then I would set forth with the challenge of having to acquire that permission from whichever brands I've worked with. And that has been a challenging process in some cases. In some cases, I came to my design decisions and then sought out permission. In other cases, I acquired permission first and then decided where to place whatever products I'd be working with within the design framework. So it was really a varied design process for me, but one that came together step by step and in incremental steps along the way. I could never rush the process, um, because I had too much respect for the brands that were putting their trust in me. I never wanted this to be just like a fun little game that you're not afraid to get, you know, crumpled or spill something on it, and it's who cares? We'll just throw those in the garbage at the end of the night anyway. I never wanted this to be a throwaway item. And so everything we've been talking about in this session really formalized my approach in that way.
The amount of thought and care and intention that is going into this deck, it's incredible. It's truly
Thank
incredible,
you.
Frank.
Thank you.
And I'm so grateful for, like I said, the contribution that you're making to the tradition of tarot. I think this is an extremely revolutionary deck. I have one other like sex themed deck that's like very novelty,
Yeah.
and there's some things about it that I'm like, oh, that kind of makes sense, but it does not have the amount of heart that you have poured into
Thank
this.
you.
So let's talk about the future of Vibrating Tarot. Let's talk about the crowdfunding campaign that is upcoming. And actually, for folks who are listening to this right now, I believe this is coming out on May 4th. The crowdfunding campaign has already kicked off, and you have an opportunity right now to secure your Vibrating Tarot deck.
That's true. It's fun to talk in the present about a future point in time we're going to pretend it's May 4th today, and I'm going to invite everybody to visit vibratingtarot.com. And the URL, vibratingtarot.com, used to link directly to my website where you could have read about the project in great detail. But for this period of time, it redirects directly to the crowdfunding campaign. If you want to approach the crowdfunding campaign through a different route, you can go to backerkit.com. What happened was BackerKit really stepped up with the tremendous support for our project when other crowdfunding platforms were turning us away. I started with the intention of using Kickstarter. I was already familiar with BackerKit because they are a pledge manager for a variety of other crowdfunding platforms. And I had already started a Kickstarter account and a BackerKit account because I have pledged towards other projects. And being on Kickstarter, I saw a lot of projects that were coming out that were closely related to mine, certainly within the adult realm. Some of the actual pleasure products themselves that appear in the artwork were funded on Kickstarter. There's a process that you need to submit your project for approval. When I went through that process, it was declined. And I've always maintained that it was perhaps the wrong decision, but I was given an appeal process. You're given a very short character count for you to just type in a very short response to their decision. And within that process, I lost the appeal. So I was faced with having to find a different crowdfunding platform. And I really have to say, I couldn't be happier with where I landed because BackerKit really stepped up in a lot of different ways. Not only did they put both arms around me and embrace the project and told me that I'm developing something important and worthwhile and something that they wanted to be a part of, but the level of customer service and customer support and community, going back to community, so important. Kickstarter, I kind of felt like I was all alone. But when I joined BackerKit on their crowdfunding platform, um, I realized they have a Discord room where you could hang out and talk to other creators. You could ask a question, and the question is answered within minutes because people are just there and they know the answer and they'll just answer. Working through the payment processing that is upcoming and all that was, BackerKit really helped me out with understanding that and advocating on my behalf. And so I just like to publicly thank them as well as everyone else that we've been talking about this entire time. Certainly backerkit.com is a cool crowdfunding platform. It's gaining a lot of popularity. And it focuses a lot on creative projects like mine, decks of cards, certainly comic books and tabletop board games, and these types of uh, tactile projects that people have this drive to put into the world. Enamel pins, all kinds of creative projects. Whereas some of the other crowdfunding platforms, you get anything from like a jet engine to a desk chair to hovercraft. Who knows? They're all crowdfunding any type of project on those platforms. But on BackerKit, it's very specific to creative endeavors like the Vibrating Tarot project. So I feel at home with them. Um, we're seeing how it all goes. I hope we'll be successful. I'm asking for a very modest amount because I only want to ask for what I know I need in order to proceed. Um, if we're successful by May 22nd, I'll just throw out the dates there. We're crowdfunding from May 1st to May 22nd. And if we're successful in reaching our goal, I'll be able to keep a pre-sale store open until the end of August. So that will add to our numbers, add to the success, the overall success of the project, and enable me to take in more orders and maybe even print more tarot decks as a result. Another really cool thing that BackerKit has introduced is a cross collab opportunity for people who are crowdfunding similar projects at the same time to join together in a cross collaboration so that each creator shares each other's audience and each other's momentum. And so I've teamed up with um, a tarot deck publisher called Baroque Publishing. They very recently published a deck called the Baroque Tarot, which, much like mine, reaches into our culture to acquire the imagery that they'd be moving forward with. And they've chosen to select a variety of Baroque paintings, oil on canvas paintings from the masters of the Baroque period, and to show their paintings on each and every tarot card in their deck. Following the success of the Baroque Tarot, they released a tarot deck called the Naked Truth. And again, taking Baroque imagery and imagery from this classic period of art and solely focusing on paintings that feature people in the nude. And so you have this wonderful painting of a nude figure standing in a garden, or somebody draped over a love seat with their arm across their head, and they're in the nude. And it's all very tasteful. It celebrates the human form, body acceptance, sexual positivity, and everything like that. And so I felt our projects really went hand in hand. What they're doing is they're now publishing the second edition of The Naked Truth. And so Baroque Publishing and my company, Pallor Publishing, have teamed up to crowdfund The Naked Truth Tarot and the Vibrating Tarot both at the same time. And a step further beyond that is that our tarot decks have been selected to be part of an even larger tarot crowdfunding festival called Tarotopia. And so each partnership is entered into a much larger community where I think there'll be over a dozen, maybe closer to even 16 different tarot decks, all crowdfunding at the same time. And I'll be crowdfunding beside the likes of the Publishing Goblin. Might have heard of the Alleyman Tarot that came out a number of years ago, a very successful tarot deck. The Steamboat Arcana, which showcases public domain images of the very first drawings of Mickey Mouse and all those Disney characters from the very, very early days. There are inventive tarot decks beyond that I'm working with, crowdfunding all at the same time. So we're working together, we're sharing ideas, we're sharing each other's projects with one another, and we'll be sharing all of our projects with a greater number of people that'll be looking in. And the festival is advertised right on the BackerKit homepage. So if you do go to backerkit.com, you'll see a great big banner that says Tarotopia, and you'll know you're in the right place. You click on that, and you'll see all the different tarot decks that are being funded. In the case of the cross collab between Baroque Publishing and mine, we're each offering a freebie. So if somebody pledges towards both of our projects, they'll receive a free gift from me and a free gift from Baroque. Baroque is giving away a beautiful keychain that features one of the tarot designs, a little protected section on the keychain. And the free gift that I'll be giving away is the PDF coloring book of each of the Vibrating Tarot designs. So it's a 43-page PDF that you'll be able to download. It contains 2 images per 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And so all 80 tarot images are included in this coloring book. And you'll be able to get the PDF. You could color them in a digital environment if you have a tablet, or you could print out the pages at home or at the print shop. You can even print out all of the pages and have it spiral bound into a booklet. There are hashtag marks on the corners of each tarot card. So if you want, you could actually, cut out each tarot card and have your own printed deck colored in with your own imagination. And I've done this as a way of allowing a platform to be there for people to connect with the tarot imagery on a deeper level. I realized that I never got to know the tarot deck as intimately as I do now if it wasn't for taking it all apart and putting it all back together again through my process of creating a deck. And I wanted to share with the greater audience some form of that creativity. And so when you see these coloring images, you'll be able to take them one by one and look at each and every little element on the card. You'll discover things that you didn't know were there before. You'll be coloring something in and you'll realize, oh, I never knew this was here. And so interacting with it in that way, I hope brings a greater sense of connectedness with the consumer of the product and the actual deck itself. And so the PDF will be for sale during the crowdfunder, but it'll also be given away for free if you pledge to both projects. And the the PDF coloring book or a printed coloring book, it's not probably going to be a standalone product that is for sale in the marketplace after the crowdfunder is over. So if you want the entire set together at once in the coloring book format, jump on it now. But I think for the rest of my career and for the rest of the days following until my website no longer exists, I'd like to give away a variety of these coloring pages for free along the way. So right now, there's 10 free coloring images on my website. And if you go to my website, which is pallorpublishing.com, you'll be able to go to the Vibrating Tarot section and scroll down to where it says coloring book. And they're just there for free for people to download onto their computer and start coloring right away. You can print them out or color them in on your tablet. And when enough time has passed, I'll take those 10 images down. I'll put a different set of 10, make a different set of 10 available, and maybe rotate through the whole deck throughout the years that follow the crowdfunder, because I want people to have that element at their fingertips. I feel, in addition to the guidebook that comes with the tarot deck, the coloring book, like I said, also it offers people a chance to connect with the project in a different way.
I love a tarot coloring book. The first deck that I ever was given, I was also given a book that went with it that had kind of coloring pages in there. So that resonates. That resonates for me.
Yeah.
I will absolutely be backing this project. And I hope that those who are listening, if you have been inspired by Frank's beautiful and intuitive connection to the tarot and all of the intention that has been put in this deck, I hope that you join me in backing this, because I just want to see these out in the world. It'll be an incredible piece to have in your collection for years, and I hope in 20, 30, 40, 50 plus years, folks are looking for this as a vintage deck to add to their collection, because it's a wonderful project that you've put together.
Thank you so much.
And looking at the cards that are coming up for the future, I have great hope. I believe deeply that this is going to be a very successful crowdfunding campaign. First of all, hearing you talk about how this is all being done in collaboration with other deck makers, it's no surprise that the Three of Cups
Oh yeah.
is showing up
that's
here,
wonderful.
showing that beautiful union and collaboration
Absolutely.
and joyous coming together to uplift and share each other's artwork. That's a gorgeous connection
I love
that's being
that. Yeah.
drawn. I think this is just the beginning for Vibrating Tarot. This is truly just its birth. It's been planned for so long and so many years, but I think there's so much more to come, because we have the Page of Wands.
Oh, another good one.
We have the Page of Wands here. Could be referred to as the Page of Rope.
Yep.
The Page of Rope. And the seeds have been planted. You've been putting so much work in, gosh, if we want to go with that metaphor, building the garden, preparing the garden beds, acquiring the seeds that you need. There's been so much effort and labor that's gone in. And it's starting to sprout now, and I think it's going to grow into a beautiful, beautiful, continuing with the metaphor, a beautiful plant moving forward.
Thank you. Yeah. I like that metaphor of being at the beginning. I feel like the end of this project is just the beginning of my new career. I hope to continue producing projects like this. At the same time, I hope to find more formal employment within the pleasure product industry. I know that a lot of people come to the table with their resume, and I come to the table with a fully developed tarot deck that embraces everyone across the industry and surrounding communities. And so, you know, coming from a place where no one in the industry really knew who I was, um, bringing this tarot deck as my ace in the hole, I think is a great way.
As your offering,
I hope that
bringing it as your offering to the community.
exactly, yeah. I hope that it paves the way for many, many wonderful things to come. That's certainly my intention.
Well, I will have all of the relevant links in the show notes. Absolutely the link to Vibrating Tarot, to the backer kit, to Frank's website at pallorpublishing.com. Is there anywhere else that you want to encourage folks to find you?
No, you've gotten for now you've gotten the right links there. If there are any font enthusiasts, I'll say if you know anything about
We
font
haven't even
create,
touched on vibrating
yeah,
font.
if you know anything about fonts, if you download fonts for your computer system or anything, if you're familiar with dafont.com, you could check out, just type in Pallor Publishing. It's Pallor Publishing. Type that into the search bar, and you'll see the variety of fonts that I've developed and released for free. And Vibrating Font is amongst them as well. So I'll provide you with that link. And it's a free for non-commercial use, a pleasure product themed font, which embraces all the same brands that we've been talking about throughout the session and so many more. I've reached out to large companies, medium and small businesses, and independent creators and artists from so many different countries around the world. And we've all come together for this project, which has expanded into a coloring book, which is expanded into a font. And so, yeah, the font would, if I could add anything else to your list of links, I'll add that one as well, because Vibrating Font, now being May 4th, is at our fingertips. So it's free for personal use.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Frank, for talking about your project with me today. This has been such a joy. I cannot wait to have the full deck in my hands. I already am coming up with ideas and things I want to do with it. But yeah, thank you for your contribution to the tarot legacy and to the commingling of the pleasure world and the occult world.
Absolutely. And thank you for all the work that you've done. Because, we came to meet one another through this body of work, and there you are. You're trucking along and you're doing the same thing. I've learned a lot from you throughout the years. I really can't tell you how much I've learned from you. And you continue to inspire me through your work and through this podcast. I've listened to a variety of episodes. I know I'm going to visit Tucson sooner or later. I know what cemetery I'm going to visit. I know which occult store I'm going to go check out. I continue to learn from you from so many facets. I'm grateful for our friendship and for the work that you've put out into the world. It's inspirational beyond your knowledge.
Thank you. I will take that to heart, absolutely. And to those who have been listening today, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, happy shuffling.